everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Courageous Conversations. I think you remember I'm Jenna and, of course, my good buddy Shelly.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
This is kind of a treat for Shelly and I because I feel like we go in completely opposite directions most of the time. And then, of course, with the COVID, we are working out of our home offices, so we don't really cross paths all that often. But at any rate, thanks for joining us here today. As you're aware, our topic of discussion is carrot versus stick and how to and when to motivate our employees.
Yes, it's a great topic. I love it. It's carrot versus stick, but not really. And Jenna, if you don't mind, I'll hop into kind of why I think that's the case.
Please do.
Okay, awesome. So for me, it's not always the carrot or the stick, because the carrot usually signifies somebody dangling, this, hey, I've got this great thing for you to do and you can get this. And usually, okay, Jenna, show them the carrot. Usually what happens with the carrot, it gets thrown out over the shoulder and it never produces. And with the stick, happen to have one right here. It looks like it was probably used for marshmallows and not the carrot. But with the stick, see, there's Jenna with her carrot.
Bring the props. I mean, what else can you ask for, right?
Right. And with the stick, I kind of liken that to discipline. You're giving someone the stick a little bit, you're kind of prodding them, you're poking them, you're getting them maybe in the disciplinary phases. But we never really talk about the string in between. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today is how do we keep people motivated, and what are that string that's in between that ties on one end of the stick and ties on the other end of the carrot and keeps the two together. And so really, to me, I think that's about asking questions and finding your employees' purpose. Why? What do you need? What motivates you? What can I do to help you succeed? And then also asking things like, what are you willing to try, or what are you willing to do? And what's the outcome that you have in mind when you're motivated to move in this direction? And really, motivation can be looked at in two different ways, and Jenna's going to expand on this a little bit. There's the positive motivation. Excuse me, I can't really talk this morning. And then there's the negative motivators and motivation. So are your folks being positively motivated or negatively motivated? And what are their internal talk, that internal motivation? There's some external forces, like we're going to expand on talking about relationships and things like trust and things like that. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jenna, and then maybe I'll talk about a little carrot and stick action towards the end here.
Sounds good. So I think if you've heard of, Shelly and I preaching about, motivation and performance management and that kind of a thing before, you've probably heard us talk about this book called Primed to Perform. Or you've heard us reference Simon Sinek and Simon Says. So I do think that you should check out both of those things. But to expand on what Shelly said, in terms of the motivation, we get asked a lot, how do I motivate somebody to do this? How do I do that? And it's like, it's not waving a magic wand. There's no magical fairy dust. Sorry, I have a 4-year-old girl. So there's no magical fairy dust or a wand or anything that you can shake to get somebody motivated. There's just different factors, and people are motivated by a lot of different things. There's not a one size fits all. What works for one person will absolutely not work for another. And you just need to know that as long as you're being consistent in your process and you're trying to help motivate your folks or recognize the reasons why they might not be motivated, you're doing the right thing. You're in the trenches. You're doing what you need to as a supervisor or a coworker even. And so what Shelly had said, when the book, Primed to Perform, talks about motivators and demotivators. And the things that motivate people are divided into 3 categories. It's play, purpose, and potential. And like Shelly said, do your employees find what they're doing fun? Do they find what they're doing to have purpose? Do they understand at the core value what the company is trying to do, and are they motivated by that? Or are they motivated by potential? Do they have the opportunity to learn this to get that, right? That carrot, as you will. On the other hand, there are external factors that demotivate people or have the opposite effect that you'd want, right? And most often these are external factors. It's things like working for money. That's not the be all end all. You can't say, if I pay you $10,000 more a year, okay, that's extreme. But if I pay you more per year, will you have greater output? No, that's actually not the case. And in fact, there are studies out there that once you hit like that 70,000 mark per year, the motivation for extra money goes out the window. It just doesn't matter after that. There are other external factors like inertia. Did this person come into the organization with purpose? Meaning, did you carve out a job description for them, or were they brought on as like an intern and now they're just kind of hanging around and we haven't fixed the glitch yet, right? Those are some of the things that could be externally motivated. The big one for being demotivated would be doing something out of guilt, right? So the carrot is nowhere tied to what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. They're doing it because they're pressured to do it. They're guilted into doing it. For instance, I would imagine some of your CSRs don't like non-pays. Maybe they do, I don't know. But there are some that probably don't. And the reason that they're doing it is because, oh, it says right there on the fourth line in my job description, complete the non-pay process, right? They're doing it because they have to. And that is very unmotivating. Again, it takes away from the motivation of doing it. So as a manager, obviously, you're having to say, well, look, there are some things that we don't always like to do, but let's focus on the good, or spin it in a way that makes them feel more tied to it. Like, you know what, I'm upholding the company's values by doing this, or I am, creating less of a headache down the road by doing it this way, sort of a thing. And so there's a lot of different ways that people are motivated or demotivated, and recognizing the reasons why they're one way or another will help you as a supervisor try to carve a path for them that will actually help them kind of deal with that down the road. Another thing that we think about quite often, I think because we listen to, again, Simon Sinek. And Simon says to focus, and I think it fits really nicely with what Shelly had said, on that string, right? There's this like gray area between motivating or, appreciation, and possibly demotivating, and or kind of that area where we're talking about discipline or coaching or counseling a little bit. And I think it all kind of comes through, what is your environment like? Do you have an environment that is built around trust? Do your employees trust that they're not purposely doing something wrong out of spite? What if they do mess up? Do you have their back? And so that purpose of trust, I think, is such a huge factor in motivation, right? If someone feels like they can, go out on a limb or answer a call or, take something on themselves, do they trust that you have their back to do that? And do they trust if something goes sideways, that they're really trying, that you have their back to be like, no, that was, what, we'll get it next time, or hey, can you try it like this, and that'll have a better outcome next time. So that environment is really a big one, I think, for all employees.
Couldn't agree more. And, even with that environment of trust and respect, we still sometimes have to, I'm going to bring back the carrot and the stick, have to use a little bit of carrot and stick action. And what I mean is, with the carrot, sometimes as employees, we have tasks at hand and we look straight down at our tasks, and that's the only thing that we're focused on. So sometimes we have to kind of bring the chin up for them, help them look into the future, and that's all about using that carrot at the end of the stick. Again, using and tying in the why. Why are we doing this? and also finding out why they're at work and doing what they're doing. And again, the why for the negative and the positive side of both of that. So absolutely, using the carrot is beneficial to say, hey, here's what could be available to you if you just look up a little bit, if you just look forward a little bit. And then also with that, following through on your end of the deal. So not just dangling the carrot, but actually giving the carrot once they achieve the results that you're looking for in that motivation. And then, sometimes, unfortunately, a little stick action is necessary. And with that, I mean the discipline part of it. Hopefully, your folks aren't underperforming, but we do have that every once in a while. And we hope that it hasn't gotten that far because you've taken advantage of plenty of coaching and counseling. Again, it's their choice. And when you're there and need to use the stick, it just happens. You have to make sure that you're doing your documenting correctly and taking the time to sit down, but also do it respectfully too. It's not about slapping hands and saying, okay, now get back to work. It's about sitting down, continuing to build on that relationship, continuing to build the trust, and saying, okay, I trust that we're going to find a solution together and work together and move this in the right direction again.
I agree. Having those, I think those kind of coaching, disciplinary things aren't obviously the funnest conversations to have. I think we can all attest to that. But I think if you look at it, from the perspective of, I'm trying to help this person. I'm not trying to point out every little thing that they did wrong or, every single reason why it turned out the way that it did, right? We're not pointing fingers. And I think don't forget the environment that you're trying to portray, even in those, because I think those are the moments when employees feel it the most, right? Where you're just trying to help me. Spin it in a way that, if this person is continuing to do something incorrectly and you think you've communicated to them 10 different ways, every way that you know how, and it's still not happening, those discussions are still needing to be respectful. Be in that, that little environment, that circle of trust that you've created or are trying to create, and let them know that, hey, I'm just here to help you, but really, and I'm here to give you any resources or support that you need, but you need to know that change comes from within, and I trust that you're going to do that. So just making sure that those conversations are with the utmost respect, and not that we see any differently, but I think that it's really important for the employee to know that, hey, if I do need something, they're going to tell you. So maybe, some of those external forces are at play, and you're helping, minimize them as best you can. So as part of the supervisor, I think that's obviously a really good thing to portray.
Absolutely. And, if as management, folks that are in leadership positions, if you ever do run into a situation where you're just not sure how to keep your people motivated, know that you can approach Jenna and I. And we're definitely experienced in helping identify those motivators, helping you build those relationships and really fortify them, as well as get that motivation moving in the right direction, whether it is through the carrot, the string, and the stick, or a little bit of more than one than the other.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, we appreciate you guys being here today, and hopefully you recognized us from our Bitmojis with our here. We kind of have fun nerding out with that, but at any rate, if you have any topics, please feel free to email us if you'd like to hear something a little bit different or dig in on something a little deeper.
Thanks everyone for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.